Okay, and for our third and final talk, 67, Jennifer Bronte of Southwest Florida Watershed Management District is going to speak about the status of the farms program and the Shell and Prairie Creek RE plans. Please welcome Jennifer.
I'm going to be giving an update that gives a very general overview, a very high-level overview of what's going on with the Shell Prairie and Joshua Creek watersheds and the reasonable assurance plan that was developed about 10 years ago. I'm first going to go over the history of the reasonable assurance plan itself and explain what it is and why it happened, and then I'm going to talk about some of the key factors in that reasonable assurance plan. And these aren't everything that's included in it. These are the things that are primarily led by the Water Management District itself, including the farms program, a well backlogging program we have, specific conductance reconnaissance network that we do every year, water use and well construction permitting, recovery plan and how that interacts with the SPJC plan, and the quality of water improvement or QUIP program for plugging wells as well as land acquisition. So, the reasonable assurance plan. What happened was in around 1999 to 2000, there was a drought. And during this drought, the city of Punta Gorda, which has a drinking water reservoir in line with Shell Creek, just upstream of the estuary itself, not very far upstream at all, they started having a lot of exceedances of secondary drinking water quality standards, total dissolved solids, conductivity, and chlorides. These are secondary standards, so they're not health threats, but they affect taste. It's not very good to have a lot of salts in your drinking water. So they first initially needed to figure out where this was coming from and then what to do about it. So a very large group of stakeholders got together. The high conductivity in the drinking water reservoir itself was primarily a result of agricultural irrigation water use upstream. The deep Floridan aquifer down in this part of the state, this far south of the state, is very salty. A lot of the wells that were drilled on agricultural properties got into that salty Floridan aquifer water. And so as they irrigated with it, applied it to the land, rain would fall, the salty water would run off the land into the creeks that contributed to the drinking water reservoir. So this is where the salty water is coming from. Next they had to figure out what to do about it. So this is, I've been involved with a lot of groups over the years. The stakeholders group is probably one of the larger, more diverse groups. It's definitely the most positive working group that I've ever been involved with, where everybody has gotten along. I don't know if that's been always true, but since I got here in 2004, everybody's played really nice, and it's been a very, very positive experience. And we've done some good things as a result of it, as I'm going to talk about in a minute. A watershed management plan was developed, and that was further developed into the Shell and Prairie Creek Reasonable Assurance Plan. Shell and Prairie Creek were the creeks that were actually impaired flowing into the reservoir. Joshua Creek was added as well. It wasn't impaired, but it's in pretty much the same situation as the other two creeks, so they threw that one in there to address it all at the same time. So, SPJC. This reasonable assurance plan was signed by all the stakeholders in a very large ceremony held in 2004, and it was set up to address these water quality concerns within 10 years by 2014, and here we are. So, the current status of the plan. We've had 10 years of implementation. We've been putting out biannual reports every year. The most recent year just came out for the 2010 to 12 year range. That's posted on our website. And the final biannual report is going to be developed starting towards the end of this year and submitted to DEP early next year, probably about this time next year. And when they submit it to DEP, what it's going to show is that water quality is trending in a very good direction, but we're not quite where we want it to be yet. So they're going to ask for a time extension, probably, they're going to ask DEP for a time extension so that we can continue doing what we've been doing to try to finally achieve those goals that we set out to begin with. Water quality improvements. We're talking specifically about total dissolved solids, chloride, and specific quite meeting the water quality standards, but like I said, it's not a health concern. The frequency of the exceedances of these water quality standards has decreased quite a bit in the last 10 years. There still are exceedances, but as one example, Prairie Creek at Washington Loop Road used to exceed the water quality standards 25.6% of the time, and it's down to 9.8% of the time now. That's in an average rainfall year. When we had the more recent drought, however, the exceedances went back up a bit. But overall, things have improved quite a bit. Climatic influences are definitely still evident. Yeah. So monitoring and the project implementation that I'm going to talk about next are continuing. One of the biggest programs that went into effect as a direct result of SPJC and the concerns in the SPJC watersheds was the primary driver in the formation of the FARMS program, Facilitating Agricultural Resource Management Systems. This is a cost-share program that was developed in 2003 jointly by FDACS and the Water Management District, and is continuing to be run by the Water Management District today. It's a cost-share program. It's unique to the Southwest Florida Water Management District only. And the very first goal of the FARMS program was to improve water quality and reduce watershed or water use in the SPJC watershed. Another one of our 5 FARMS program goals is directly related to this. We have a goal of reducing groundwater use by 40 million gallons per day in the SWACA as a whole by the year 2025. The program offers up to 75% cost share reimbursement to farmers who implement specific BMPs. It ranges from 50 to 75%, but 75% is the maximum that we can reimburse. And the BMPs that are implemented address 3 of the district's areas of responsibility, including water supply, water quality, and natural system improvement. These are some pictures of our biggest and our primary BMPs that we cost share, and by far the biggest and best one that we cost share, the real workhorse of the FARMS program, is the surface water tailwater reservoirs with pump stations, filtration systems, and piping to connect the reservoir into an existing mainline system for a grove or other farm. We also cost share weather stations, precision irrigation systems, computer automation, soil moisture sensors, surface water control structures is another one. That's to capture water as it's leaving the farm and hold it back, at least in some rim canals or ditches. And cross-pump doesn't really apply down here. This is a map of the FARMS projects we have in existence. The light green area, which doesn't show up too good on the screen there, but it's the area off to the right that's kind of outlined by itself. That's the Shell Prairie Drawship Creek watershed. The projects to look at are the ones that are in orange and blue, and in pink, those are actual projects. The other boxes that are outlined are farms we've been out on, that we've talked to. Some of them have interest, some of them are just listed as dormant. But we've been out to a lot of properties, a lot more than we actually have projects on. We're always trying to get out to more. So the FARMS program, which started out as a response to SPJC, is on district-wide now. District-wide, we have a total of 159 board-approved projects that we funded. 50 of those are in the SPJC watershed. The projected groundwater offset, this is the reduction expected in Florida aquifer groundwater use. For all the board, 159 projects is 25.3 million gallons per day, and for just SPJC, it's 10 million gallons per day. We have 132 of those projects are operational now, 43 of those operational projects are in SPJC. So almost all the ones we have down here are operational, and we've had some very large, very new projects just come through that are going to be constructed very soon. The well back plugging program is another tool that we've used to address the high chloride conductivity in the SPJC watershed. And we can do back plugging throughout the whole entire SWACA, but it's especially effective in the SPJC watershed. This is where we take those deep Floridan wells. They're usually 800 to 1,200 feet deep on average. They can be deeper or shallower. But we go out there, and what they do is, if the well's really salty to start with, they can video log it, and then they can take water quality samples as they're going down at depth. And in some cases, you'll find in the well a specific place where all of a sudden you get the high conductivity water coming in through a crack or a fissure or it's some little hole. And if you can identify in a well a specific place high conductivity water coming into the well, you can back plug from just above that spot on down and then just have good quality water available in the well after that. So that's what they do. Not all wells are good candidates for this, but if they do find a well that has that specific set of criteria, they can back plug it. This is a lot more cost effective than constructing all new wells. And it's only for wells that have a conductivity of 1,000 microsiemens per centimeter or greater. And we will reimburse the grower up to $1,500 for pulling the pump, which is expensive, and another $5,000 for the backplugging operation itself. And the triangles, some of which are very light blue, are all the places that we've done well backplugging. And the yellow is the SPJC watershed. It shows up a lot better on my screen. The red triangles are 16 wells that we started, after we backplugged them, we started monitoring the water quality in those wells quarterly with the intention of monitoring them quarterly for forever. A few of them we started to have access problems with, but now we continuously monitor 9 wells semi-annually. I've seen the water quality data. Shortly after these wells get backplugged, the water quality stabilizes and stays pretty much the same for years and years and years afterwards. So we've backplugged 55 wells in the SPJC watersheds. Most of these were done early in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, early in the reasonable assurance plan years. Most of the really good quality, or really good candidate wells were done early on. We get a steady trickle of them in recent years. We do about 2 or 3 a year for probably the last 5 or 6 years. So most of them were done early on. We're still always looking, we still have funding to backplug more wells. We're always looking for more wells that are good candidates. We do find a few here and there. On average, we've seen a reduction in conductivity of about 41%, reduction in dissolved solids is average 43%, reduction in chloride is average 59%. And these wells, they do lose some yield when you do this backplugging. On average, they've retained 78% of their initial yield. So on average, they're losing about 22%. Some of them have lost so much yield that the wells pretty much become useless to a grower. That doesn't happen very often, especially with the screening that it goes through first, but it has occasionally happened. The specific conductance reconnaissance network. This is something that they've been doing for the last several years. We'll go out twice a year, once in the dry season and once in the rainy season. Test a whole bunch of individual locations to try to find the hot spots, to try to find where conductivity is really high in creeks, canals, ditches, during the dry season and during the wet season. They don't find very many, if any at all, hot spots during the wet season just because the rain dilutes the water so much. In the dry season, they do find some hot spots. And so what we did a couple of years ago was I sat down with a list of hot spots and spent some time in GIS and mapped out all the water use permits upstream of these hot spots. And we sent out 47 letters to 47 water use permit holders, offering them our services for water quality testing, backplugging, telling them about the farms program, and asking them to call us if they're interested in doing anything. We got about 15 responses out of that. So that was pretty good just for a blind mail. And that reconnaissance network has ongoing sampling. All right. Another tool being used by the Reasonable Assurance Plan is our water use permitting and well construction permitting that we do through the Water Management District. It's changed a little bit to address some of the water quality concerns in SPJC. So if you're looking at a water use permit or a well construction permit within the boundaries of these watersheds, the water use permits, when they come in, are required to evaluate economic, technical, and environmental feasibility of using alternative water supplies. Alternative water supplies being mainly surface water. The water use permits end up with extra special conditions on them that are are specifically related to well depth and the conductivity of the water they find in the wells, which is related to the some what we call well stipulations for well construction in these watersheds. Basically, when wells are constructed here, they have to sample the water quality as they're going down. And once they hit 1,000 microsiemens per centimeter of conductivity, they have to stop drilling. So this has prevented new wells from coming online with really poor quality water. I've got a couple of numbers here. 247 water use permits have been issued in these watersheds in the last 10 years. And the vast majority of those have actually been renewals of existing water use permits. Some of them modifications of existing permits, and just a very few have been brand new permits. There's not a ton of permits coming in. Well construction permits we've issued and constructed 693 new wells in this watershed. But like I said, these have been subject to the new stipulations to prevent more poor quality wells being done. SWCA recovery plan is another tool that's related to SPJC watersheds. It wasn't developed in response to this. It's just another tool that's highlighted in the reasonable assurance plan. This SWCA recovery plan was developed to achieve some very specific goals, one of which Randy talked about earlier. The SWCA, the Southern Water Use Caution Area, covers all of the SPJC watersheds and the Charlotte Harbor watershed within the Southwest Florida Water Management District only. I'm not talking about outside of our boundaries because the SWCA stops at our district boundaries, which is right about here and just a little south of here. The first 5-year assessment of the SWCA recovery was recently published and it's available online if you want to read it. The recovery plan is focused on reducing upper Florida groundwater withdrawals, which coincides nicely with goals of the SPJC reasonable assurance plan. And continuing work is going on with the SWCA recovery strategy. It started out for 20 years, but we have to give 5-year updates every 5 years. They're collecting additional data, they're developing more recovery options, and they've specifically developed some focus groups for areas that are not down in this watershed, but the most impacted area up by closer to Tampa Bay, Manatee County, and the Rich Lakes area. The Quality of Water Improvement Program. This is a program to properly plug abandoned artesian wells, flowing wells, to keep them from continuously discharging to all over the place. When it comes to artesian wells, the way the rules of the Water Management District are written is that they have to be properly capped with a valve that can't be turned off. That doesn't mean that people actually have to turn the valve off. So I've seen a lot of things over the years, but they are supposed to be properly capped. Not all of them are. As we find them, we go talk to people and get them to properly cap them. But if the well is not actually being used, and especially if it's really salty, too salty for cows to drink, a lot of these are cow water wells. We would like for people to plug them, and we do offer a cost share program for people to plug these types of wells. They have to be located within the area that's mapped that's eligible for this program, which includes all of the SPJC. They have to be 4 inches in diameter or greater, and they have to be at least a year old and drilled for water supply. And we will reimburse up to $6,000 per well or $18,000 per landowner per year. Now, this is a really, really, really successful program in terms of getting high conductivity water to stop flowing freely. Having said that, we've only had 3 wells in the last 10 years go through the FOOT program in the SPJC. So we would like to find more. The FOOT program goes back to 1976, and we've only had less than 10 wells total in SPJC since 1976, but for this program. And the last thing I'll talk about is the land acquisition program to keep land in native land use. The biggest land acquisition that we've had in this watershed is the Bright Hour Ranch, the former Bright Hour Ranch. That's over 32,000 acres, but we did not acquire that land. We acquired a conservation easement with that land. And then the other land acquisitions we have are the
questions?
Yes, when Pearl Creek was giving us EPA's TMDL, I had the opportunity to look at some water quality stations, ambient water quality stations that were managed by USGS, and noted a significant reduction of nutrients as a result of the well-back plugging, I think, the circulation system. Are there any plans to look at the various projects for nutrients?
We haven't really talked about that down in this watershed. We're bringing online more farms projects in the northern part of the district that are related to the springs, and that's where the nutrient sampling is really focused right now. Our sampling program overall has been reduced in the last few years as a result of budget cuts. I have not heard of anything related to nutrient sampling down here. I will say that we do have, I wanted to mention, we do a lot of surface water projects down in this area, and we have a number of growers down here who have gone to 100% surface water use on their properties. So by doing that, I would expect nutrient and everything else being reduced. Not only are they using surface water instead of groundwater, but the surface water bodies are recapturing any tailwater that would otherwise normally run off the farm property. Now they're going into these surface water reservoirs instead. So I don't know of any current plans to sample the nutrients.
DEP is doing some monthly connectivity sampling, and I believe they do nutrients every now and then as well. Shell Prairie, Breaking Word Slip, up by State Road 31.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Lisa, I believe you have the answer.
Yeah.